You talked about doing some YouTube videos about designing games. Are they still coming out? So fun fact, I've been talking about that for 7 years. Haven't done it yet. I did post one video as an introduction to my channel. I deleted it because, you know, it wasn't good enough. I didn't feel good about it. I still want to do it. I still want to start a design YouTube channel where I talk about design. Probably would also post like things from my stream. I'm talking to folks like He Who Quacks actually about this, potentially getting some help with it. Because if I was going to do this, I definitely think I would need an editor. I just don't have time to edit enough for myself. But I also need a space to like record in and like actually do the things. And yeah, so working on some stuff like that. It might happen. But I've also been talking about it for 7 years and it hasn't happened yet, but who knows. But yeah, it's still something I want to do. I think it would be pretty cool if I could do it at some point. But yeah, I would love to like just do a channel about kind of just like, here's how I think about design, and you could potentially think about design like this too. Teach people some of the ways I think about design. For those of you who don't know, by the way, the lead designer on League of Legends has a YouTube channel. Here, let me go find it. Phroxzon YouTube. He doesn't post very much on it anymore. But these are actually pretty helpful videos. I'm gonna post the link in chat. He's got like a YouTube on like League fundamentals, so you can go like check that out. He's got some good videos there about just fundamentals of playing the game. Fun fact is that Phroxzon actually, the way he got hired at Riot originally, from what I understand, was through his YouTube. He used to like make a lot of YouTubes about like, you know, just League in general and like, you know, how to play the game, and like it showed that he got like really understood the game at a pretty good level. And one of the design leads at Riot at the time saw that and was like, hey, do you want to like try an internship at Riot? And then he, you know, came to Riot and did really well at his internship, and now he is lead designer on League of Legends. So yeah, good time. Used to be my roommate too. I miss him. Now I'm stuck with a crazy Jhin player. Unlucky.
Since there's no longer lane swaps and we have Fearless, will Ksante be looked at again? I get his W being direction locked tank form, but in all that, I don't see the reasoning. Often feel people just walk away from me. I mean, his W being direction locked in all out gives him some real counterplay instead of him just kind of like doing whatever he wants to you. I personally don't really expect that to be ever revisited, and I don't think that has anything to do with lane swaps for what it's worth. And also, people are still swapping just late, right? The current meta swap is people, like, a lot of the teams were just swapping at, like, after 5 minutes, you know, to set up for grubs or to dodge lane matchups or both. So both, I don't think lane swaps are really gone, except in the, like, very, very early level sense. Like, yes, you no longer swap on the first few levels in the first 5 minutes of the game. That much is true, for sure. Number two, I don't think his W being direction locked is something that really is all about lane swapping, right? That's not true at all, right? We didn't change Ksante because he was too good in lane swaps, right? We changed Ksante because he was significantly lacking in counterplay. And the W being locked into a direction gives him some real counterplay. Your opponents can actually see what's happening and respond to it in a way that is favorable to them, right? Whereas the non-direction locked version, there's really very little to nothing that your opponents can do to respond positively to it, right? If they dodge, you know, if there's a lot of things that they can do that just mean that you just change the direction, you remove a lot of their optionality from, like a lot of their agency from interacting with the spell, right? And so it being direction locked, I think, is probably pretty important, unless we have another way of giving other players some ability to respond to Ksante's actions. I suspect that it will probably stay this way currently. It's quite surprising you guys don't think matchups are an issue, as their number one is complaining about Aurelia at the top. She's very hard to main / OTP since she's very unblindable due to her matchup spread. I'll side with the haters for once and say you guys haven't playtested Aurelia top in 5 years, because yeah, maining current top Aurelia is miserable compared to 5 stack 2020 version. I had a few counters, but everything else was up to skill. So TLDR of my answer to this, or my response to this, is many champions have sharp matchups, right? If people are complaining a lot about something, and first of all, keep in mind that the things that you see complained about, right, like this is the number one most things, like you don't have access to that data. You don't actually know if that's the most complained about thing about Aurelia, right? The things that you see on, you know, the Aurelia main subreddit or, you know, whatever, you know, Discord, whatever, right? It's like these are specific subsections of communities. They're not necessarily representative. Now, I'm not saying they're not representative. They could be, for sure. But it's not necessarily the case that that is the number one most complained about thing. Now, from my perspective, I do agree that Aurelia could be less sharp. And in general, my personal belief is that top lane in general could be less sharp. However, that sharpness can be good for some champions, especially champions that people really like to pick as counterpicks and things like that. And so it's not as simple as just saying this is good, or like this matchup sharpness is good, or this matchup sharpness is bad. And in general, it is not the end result of like, oh, we don't care about this champion. It's more, hey, we don't have a cohesive vision of like how would we reduce sharpness if we clearly wanted to in this champion's case, and we don't have a, oh, this champion should be exactly this sharp in these matchups, right? It's like we make champions, we change them over time. Sometimes those changes make them more or less sharp, and that can sometimes be good, sometimes it can be bad. I would say in Aurelia's case, it's probably been a little bit bad for her that her matchup sharpness has increased over time. However, it's not something that we're just going to immediately drop everything and say, oh my god, this champion's matchups are slightly too sharp. We therefore need to change everything, right? Is there a reason gold leads aren't shown in game? Do you mean gold leads as in like how much gold each team has, or how much gold each team has in inventory? It's like there's different schools of thought around what information we should or shouldn't be showing. But yeah, to either question, the answer is there are different ideas around like what information should be shown to players, and like what information we should show and what information we should allow players to develop an understanding of how to interpret on their own, right? As an example here, like a not a direct comparison, but an indirect comparison. Some execute ultimates have indicators and some do not, as an example, right? And you might say, why don't they all have indicators, right? Like, why does Pyke get an indicator, but Darius doesn't? The answer is, part of the skill test of playing Darius is supposed to be about understanding whether your ult kills them or not, right? Whereas with Pyke, the skill test around with Pyke is supposed to be around actually hitting them with your ultimate, not determining whether it's going to kill them or not, right? And that's why, same thing with like Cho'Gath, the difficulty is supposed to be getting into position and actually executing on the feast, not are they feastable or not. It's a mystery, right? It's like it's not supposed to be a mystery. And so kind of similarly with gold, I think there is a question as to, do we want players to know which team is slightly ahead or slightly behind in gold, or is that something we want them to, to be able to interpret on their own based on looking at items or, based on looking at the game? One thing I will say is that over the years, as we've added more and more things to the game that have impact on power level that isn't gold, right? As an example, Otacon buff, petals, feats of strength boots, dragon buffs, right? Various other sources of power that aren't gold. I do think that the argument for showing gold has gotten stronger and stronger because the direct correlation between gold and power isn't quite there in the same way that it was in like season 2, right? In the modern day, there are a lot of other things that can influence how powerful someone is. And so I think the argument around like, well, we should show gold because it's one metric that, that can showcase power, but not the only one, right? Like as an example, in season 2, if you knew exactly, who had what amount of gold, you could really accurately predict like who is going to win the game. In the modern day, it's like you have to account for like gold and dragons and grubs and Otacon and stacks on champions and like what items they've purchased because some builds scale better than others, right? And like all sorts of things like that. Like there's so many other factors to consider that I think, like I said, I think the argument for showing gold has gotten a lot stronger over the years. And I think another really strong argument is that especially gold in inventory, even if not gold on on champions in total, but like gold that is actually purchased, I think the argument for that is particularly strong because that's just like a number that shows in your inventory, like a number that like anyone could calculate if they did a bunch of math, right? And also there are some third-party apps and stuff that show that, and so I think that the argument for us showing that in the game is pretty strong, is my personal opinion.